Hi everyone, welcome to Webcast number 3, where I'll be talking to you about Middlemarch a little bit more. It's been quite a long time since my last webcast, as many of you will no doubt know. It's because I've just had a baby, little Martha, who could be here now, but actually it is so nice having a bit of time without all three children, while my wonderful husband has taken them off to the park, that I am using this moment to talk to you about books rather than babies and children. So suffice to say, everyone's well. I'm really sorry. I look so tired. I'm just looking at myself now. Weirdly, we don't yet have any mirrors up in our home, so I only ever know what I look like when I'm doing one of these or a Zoom call or something. And I do look really tired. Thank you, Martha, for not sleeping very well. Anyway, on to Middlemarch. So, there were a couple of things I wanted to say today. Firstly, a great thing about Middlemarch, for those of you who are still slightly daunted by its enormous size, is that the chapters are really, really short. So even when you're in a situation like me of having not much time to read, and I've got to say my progress has been very, very slow over the last 4 weeks since Martha was born. The good thing is the chapters are really, really short. So even if you have 5 or 10 minutes, it's enough time really usually to read a whole chapter and get a little, almost like a microdose of Middlemarch. So most days I do try and read a chapter. Most days, I say. Some evenings I'm so exhausted I don't even have a bath, I just fall fast asleep. I say that because I really like reading it in the bath. I'm not just telling you about my baths. I was trying to think why I find it so reassuring at this time. I think one of the great things about George Eliot is that she writes with such confidence, sort of quiet confidence and a feeling of control. When you read it, you have this wonderful feeling of the plot being perfectly laid out and Eliot sort of firmly but gently guiding you along the path that she wants you to take, the path that she's written in this novel with all these brilliant characters, kind of weaving their lives she weaves their lives together in such a clever way. So you do sort of know early on, I think, you have a pretty good guess at what might be about to happen, but there is a great feeling of reassurance as you're being gently taken along that course. I suppose what springs to mind in a way is a slightly weird comparison, but when you read a detective story or a murder mystery or something, you know from the beginning that there's going to be a murderer and there will be a scene at some point in a drawing room where everything is revealed, and there's something very nice and secure about knowing that at the end order will be restored. Everything will be explained to you, punishment will be sort of carried out, justice will prevail, I suppose. Sorry, I am really tired. And I've always noticed that since I worked in a bookshop that those kind of murder mystery books sell incredibly well at Christmas, partly because they're so cosy, but I think there's partly something about the reassurance of being in the hands of an author who's going to offer you a solution. There's the problem, there's the murder, but then there's the solution, and it's really nice coming to that solution together, especially around Christmas, which is such a weird time where you're stuck with your family and you're kind of forced to reevaluate your whole life in a way. I suppose during lockdown and coronavirus, where everything feels so up in the air, it's another time, where everything feels very out of control, and it's really nice, really comforting reading something that feels very controlled. So that's point one. And the other point I wanted to make is also about coronavirus. Let me find the page first of all. And here it's on page 615. I'll tell you the chapter too. Where is it? Chapter 60. Is where she's talking about Bulstrode, who's a bit of a minor character. And his life is slightly thrown into difficulty by the appearance of a sort of sinister stranger, Raffles, great name, who knows secrets about his past. And then Eliot dives into his past for a moment to share those secrets with us. And it turns out that he was a very religious person. He thought about becoming a missionary. And then he... and it says there was a moment of transition, where he gets sort of taken on by a wealthy family and asked to become their accountant. It turns out that the business of this family was a pawnbroker's. And on a short acquaintance with it, Bulstrode became aware that one source of magnificent profit was the easy reception of any goods offered without strict inquiry as to where they came from. But there was a branch house at the West End and no pettiness or dinginess to give suggestions of shame. So there's this feeling that it's something that's slightly dodgy, but not terribly dodgy. He remembered his first moments of shrinking. They were private and were filled with arguments, some of these taking the form of prayer. The business was established and had old roots. Is it not one thing to set up a new gin palace and another to accept an investment in an old one? And he sort of goes on like this and says, metaphors and precedents were not wanting. And she basically describes this brilliant way of talking about Bulstrode's shrinking, she calls it, his private shrinking. And years later, there's this feeling that he's done a wrong thing. He's gained money through the money's kind of ill-gotten in a way. He's profited of other people's misfortune. And I suppose what struck me about this bit is that it's a very good way of writing about a grey area. You know, life can be seen in black and white, or it can be seen in shades of grey. Sorry, I shouldn't say shades of grey. But Ladislaw, without wanting to give too much away, I think sees things especially to do with his fortune more in terms of black and white. You know, if money has come from a dubious source, he just says no, he doesn't want anything to do with it. Whereas Bulstrode, you know, you can see his dilemma. He wants the fortune, he sort of makes peace with acting perhaps slightly badly. And why am I thinking about this now? I suppose it just feels like during lockdown, it's been incredibly clear in some ways what's right to do and what isn't right. You know, we all know we have to stay at home and go out to exercise once a day and that's it. So you know you're not supposed to go around to a friend's house. You're not supposed to meet up with people in the park. You don't sit around and have a picnic. It's quite, it's been very clear. But now, just, you know, as of the past few days, as lockdown begins to lift, I think it's going to be a difficult time in terms of making those moral decisions. Everything suddenly becomes a bit greyer. You know, you can have cleaners back. You can have a picnic as long as it's socially distanced. You can meet with people from another household. Can you sometimes outside? How far away do you have to stay? It's all going to be shifting a lot and changing a lot. You know, the messages about public transport are quite confused. And everyone's been very cross about the confusion in the message from our Prime Minister, thinking that, you know, the simple advice to stay home rather than stay alert is much clearer. And I think one of the reasons, my feeling is one of the reasons people are so thrown by this is that sometimes it's quite nice to just be told things very straightforwardly, rather than being thrown into this grey area. You know, I don't know if the right thing to do is to send Vita back to school or not. You know, it's a really difficult decision. And sometimes it's easy just to be told what to do straightforwardly, black or white is. And it made me think of Bulstrode, trying to sort of square it all away with himself years after the event. Right, so time's pressing on. I just wanted to mention 2 other books that I've come across during the last few weeks. One is this book called Peace Talks by Tim Finch, which I reviewed in The Spectator. I have to say I did feel very sad putting down Middlemarch for a bit to read something else, especially something that's very contemporary. But it is a really good book. It's about a man coming to terms with grief, really. It's quite quietly and beautifully written. Yeah, kind of emotional, interesting book. So yes, you can read my review in The Spectator. And another book that's just been sent to me, I've not read it yet, I'm really looking forward to, it's by Ascender Max Tone Graham, who wrote Terms and Conditions, the brilliant book about boarding schools. This is about the summer holidays, so it's good timing. Weirdly, her books always seem to get published around the time that I have a baby. I remember reading Terms and Conditions when Ezra was overdue, and this arrived just as Martha was born. So definitely what I'll be reading after Middlemarch, I hope. And finally, just to mention all the brilliant online events, literary events that are going on. I don't know if you guys have been watching all these kind of Zoom interviews. The Hay Festival is happening online as of this coming weekend. For me, it's not a patch on being in a room with a brilliant writer being interviewed right there in front of you, but it is something, and it does mean that those of us who struggle to go out in the evenings because of things like new babies or babysitters, or putting children to bed, or not being well, or just being really tired, can do it from comfort of their living rooms, or indeed watching them in bed. I've also been listening to lots of great podcasts. I've been enjoying the High-Low, the Adam Buxton podcast, so not just book ones. But yeah, do let me know. I always love hearing from you about, books you've been reading, especially if you've been reading Middlemarch. Let me know how you're getting on with it. What you think about the points I raised about Eliot's brilliant feeling of control and how reassuring that is, and also about navigating our way through a grey, complicated area. Any other great events you've watched online, or interesting things you've been listening to, books you've been sent or have bought. Lovely talking to you through lockdown, and hopefully it won't be quite so long, and I probably will look just as tired next time, but looking forward to talking to you again about Middlemarch not too long. All right.